Ja, nå det sikkert mange som lurer på at jeg sender så sent på en lørdag. Det lørdag 6.7.2024. Men det nå så mye som skjer for tida at jeg synes det var på sin plass å starte opp for jeg har tenkt å dele opp videoene nå slik at de ikke blir alt for lange. Og i dag da så tenkte jeg skulle vise dere det som jeg har snakket med egentlig i noen år nå, som jeg får bekreftet nå ved det jeg kommer til å sende. Slik at jeg vil anbefale folk å følge med på den sendingen her og se de videoene. Nå tenkte jeg skulle ta oss og vente litt grann, for det virker som at det ikke noen innpå enda, men vi får nå se da. Og jeg tror jeg egentlig bare starter, fordi at dette blir lagt ut på Rumble, slik at dere kan gå inn på Rumble senere og se videoen der. Jeg fikk ikke til å kjøre det samtidig med Rumble, så da må vi ta det på den måten her. Så jeg setter egentlig rett og slett i gang, ja, og så får vi se hvor vi berker den.
Hi, I'm Scott O'Neill here in Medellin, Colombia today, and I'm at the world's biggest mosquito factory for the World Mosquito Program. We're making in here 30 million mosquitoes a week. Come and have a look. We're doing it for a very serious reason. Cities like Medellin have suffered from diseases like dengue, Zika, chikungunya for decades, but not anymore. We've been able to bring the solution of Wolbachia mosquitoes to this city. When this bacteria called Wolbachia gets introduced into the mosquito, it stops their ability to transmit dengue. We release mosquitoes that have Wolbachia, and then they go and mate, and Wolbachia gets passed into the wild mosquito population. If we're going to control these diseases in all the tropical cities of the world, it's going to require a lot of mosquitoes. The mosquito life cycle starts with the egg, and in this room we've got a lot of eggs. Each one of these strips, these tiny black dots, are up to 10,000 mosquito eggs. Across all of these strips, about 1.5 million dried eggs waiting to hatch. In this tray, we've got the newly hatched eggs. They're little larvae, so small you can hardly see them. They're going to sit in here for a few days and eat and get bigger until they look like these ones over here. They're starting to turn into pupae. We're wanting to do the next step of sorting the males from the females. We want to do that so we can manipulate the sex ratio in the cages to be more female than male. The bottom ones along here are the boys, and the ones at the top are the girls. They're bigger. From here, they're going into the adult cages. We have adults that we continuously grow in what we call our brood stock. And then over here, we have the mass-produced mosquitoes getting ready to give us the eggs to go out directly into the field. It's crazy how they sound. You might wonder, what do we feed all these mosquitoes here? Well, I can tell you, we've got the good stuff in here. On the top shelf, literally, we've got the blood. They love it. Once the mosquitoes are grown, they're ready to go out into the field. The first way is to get the eggs and package them in a gelatin capsule with food. Voila. There's 300 eggs in here and enough food for the mosquitoes to be able to grow. They just need to be dropped in water. The other approach is to take the adults themselves. Here we have 300, and they can be released off the back of a motorbike or even packaged into a drone for aerial release. Over half the world's population is currently suffering or at risk of contracting these diseases. We have a solution, and our goal is to scale and deliver it to communities around the world that need it.
Ja, dette her noe som jeg har snakket om i hvert fall de 2 siste årene, og det kan nå faktisk dokumenteres at det kan bli satt i gang stort sett over hele jordkloden. Og det skulle ikke forundre meg annet enn at det kan risikere å komme hit til Norge også. Så, men foreløpig så vil jeg si at dette her egentlig da en påstand. Jeg har ikke noe, altså jeg kan vise en dokumentasjon på det på grunn av det at Bill Gates han har snakket om dette her i videoene sine, så det kommer. Men vi får ta det litt med ro og ikke ta det for gitt det som jeg sa nå, at det kunne komme til Norge, men mest sannsynlig. Og da tenker jeg vi går over til den neste videoen.
This film will first show what the Navy is planning for the offensive employment of biological and chemical warfare. Biological and chemical warfare have 2 principal objectives: to reduce the enemy's production of food by destroying his crops and his food-producing farm animals, and to incapacitate the enemy's armed forces and that portion of his human population that directly supports them. The Navy is preparing to accomplish these objectives with both biological and chemical agents. The Department of Defense has assigned primary responsibility to the Chemical Corps, U.S. Army, for basic research in biological and chemical agents and for their production in the quantities needed by the joint services. The Navy, therefore, is primarily concerned with delivery of these agents to the areas ordered for contamination, and the dispersion of the agents in such form and concentration as to accomplish the desired objectives. Where can the Navy attack? As long as the Navy commands the seas, it can deliver a biological or chemical attack anywhere on that 3/4 of the Earth's surface that's covered by water. And its carrier-based aircraft can strike hundreds of miles inland from any coastline and attack a large portion of an enemy's population, shipping, and industrial centers. The Navy can deliver and disperse these agents in 3 ways: from the air, from the surface, and from below the surface.
This is the Cloudbuster Squadron of the American Air Force. For the last 3 years, using their giant C-130 plane, they've been punching holes in clouds.
The Cloudbusters, originally a military project, are led by Colonel James Church. Their operations are first sounding the cloud, then seeding the hole, and then slow-motion photography of the result.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start seeding, step 1. Roger, rotating, sir. In 5 seconds, we'll start seating fourth and last strip. 4, 3, 2, 1. Start seating fourth strip.
All right, we're seating, sir.
How's the machine running?
Excellent, sir. Couldn't be better.
Within 45 minutes of seeding, holes as big as 100 square miles, large enough to clear most of London, have been punched in the cloud cover.
It came from the skies to wreak havoc on the earth. Strange blob-like droplets that look something like this. It sounds like a bad science fiction movie, but for a small town in the Pacific Northwest, there was nothing entertaining or fictional about the scourge that befell them in 1994. 6 times it rained down from above, leaving dozens of local residents ill and several pets and small animals dead. Until they realized it wasn't raining rain. It was raining tiny blobs of gelatinous goo. It came down in torrents, blanketing 20 square miles, and brought with it something of a plague.
I got sick, my wife got sick, my daughter, everybody that lived here got sick.
Everybody in the whole town came down with like a flu, only it was a really hard flu. It didn't last like 7 days, it lasted like 7 weeks, 2 or 3 months.
We turned our windshield wipers on, and it just started smearing to the point where we could almost not see.
By the time she stepped outside that morning, the storm had ended, but the blobs were everywhere.
I was to the point where I could hardly breathe, you know, and ill, like I'd never had been before, to the point where, you know, it just totally shut me down.
An hour later, Dottie's daughter and son found her sprawled on the bathroom floor.
Have you been throwing up?
Yes.
Donnie, she's sick. She was cold, drenched with perspiration, pale. My mom had been vomiting. She had extreme vertigo. She complained that she had difficulty with her vision. Her vision was blurring.
A lab technician found the first startling clue. The substance contained human white blood cells, but exactly what it was and why it fell from the sky could not be determined. Mike McDowell discovered that the sample was literally teeming with 2 species of bacteria. The goo was alive, but how in the world did living matter make its way into the clouds? The explanations are as mind-boggling as the substance itself.
One thing I want to make clear here that hasn't been said is that these are not, these programs are not exclusive to just our country. These are global. This is a photograph, a satellite photograph of our planet. This is not contrails, you guys. This doesn't happen with contrails. I also want to capitalize on what you just said. We've talked a lot about the detrimental effects of geoengineering on human health. Everything is dying right now. The birds, the bees, the bats, the fish, the trees. I've got a report with me here that is a 29-day global report on fish die-offs. We caught a blip on the news about the Monterey, California fish die-off on May 17th of this year. We did not hear that there was 4 other states in our nation that were having massive fish die-offs. In that 29 days from April 19th to May 17th, there was 33 events around this planet, all of them involving millions a fish at 19 different locations on our planet. Everything is dying right now. Now, with all due respect, Senator Ward, I understood what you were saying about taking baby steps because that's necessary in the political arena when you're trying to accomplish something. We don't have time to take baby steps. We need to take huge steps if we stand any chance of doing anything about this.
This is a scraggly pine tree outside the post office in Cardiff, California, where I go every day. And you can see how brittle it is, lots of needles lost. If you look closely at the needles when you stand under the tree, you see that they're all frosted with brown. Signs of tree death are these sagging limbs, these leafless, scraggly branches. You also see infestation by bugs, insects, mites, fungus. These are spider mites that have taken up in a tree that was right next to my house. The entire tree had to be felled because of these white webs in it that were killing off the tree. But again, I'll explain why in a minute. This isn't the primary source of the death. Here you have a phenomenon that Deborah Whitman, who's here with us today, has done a lot of research on. The white, we call it the tube sock effect on trees. You see white bark, and when we tested the bark of this tree, it showed it had these readings, aluminum 387. Now this is milligrams per kilogram because this is a mass analysis rather than a liquid context. So you have barium at 18.4, strontium 113, and titanium 15.2. You can see again in these photos the enormous scorched look. That's a very dying, very unhealthy tree. And you see this other thing called secondary growth. The tufts on the trunk poking out, that's the tree giving itself, desperately trying to give itself a second stab at life. So when you look around you and you see these little growths, sometimes they're all the way along the trunk from the ground up. The beauty of an induced problem is that its twin is the solution. As nature begins to die, we will be told that science will have to step in to save it.
I moved here 6 years ago. The sky was beautiful and clear. In 2009, it started to get sprayed all the time. It is a white blanket, hazy muck all the time. It doesn't matter if we're being currently sprayed or not. It's always there. It's always there. As I said, this is nanoparticle. Once this genie's out of the bottle, it's not going back in. And the plants, there's like what Rosalind Peterson is a agricultural analyst for California. 50 million hectares of trees have died because of the fogging out, clouding out. They're not even making enough photosynthesis to maintain themselves. Plus, the toxicity of the aluminum and things are causing their roots to shut down, so they're not even uptaking water. This is a problem, kids. This is a big problem. This is death to plant life, death to bacteria, death to, right now, the species extinction rate is 150 to 200 a day. 73,000 a year. This is not something that you can sneeze off and brush aside. If you have kids, you should care. If you have lungs or a brain, you should care. This is toxicity that is in our air every breath we take in this room. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not here. It's a nanoparticle. It's toxic. Aluminum is a toxic protoplasmic poison. It stifles numerous enzyme systems in all your cells. It passes the blood-brain barrier. It degrades the blood-brain barrier. It degrades the tight junction cells in your intestines. It causes leaky gut syndrome. It's causing a host of problems. And you look so bored here. You're just smirking the whole time, and it's like a big joke to you. This is important. Our country, our country is being poisoned, and nothing is going to be done about it.
So here's the big dogs. Since 2006, the snow on Mount Shasta has 5 times more aluminum, 61,000 micrograms per liter, than the soil underneath it. Pure white snow has more aluminum in it than mud. Can you beat that? The snow water is unsafe to drink on Mount Shasta. How can white snow have more aluminum than mud? Now, the aluminum content of rain should be 0, with a pH of 5.5. When jets are not spraying, maybe so. When the jets are spraying, we get up to 13,100 micrograms per liter and pH up to 100 times normal. It goes really alkaline. This is over 13 times the federal safety limits for drinking water. Don't drink the water.
Greetings, gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm a retired scientist, bachelor's, cum laude in forestry, master's in zoology, 35 years, USDA scientist, Soil Conservation Service, U.S. Forest Service, civil service equivalents in range, wildlife, fisheries, geology, agriculture, soils, ornithology, entomology, botany, mycology, hydrology, and I qualified to speak. Just letting you know. Okay, you want some figures? Okay, latest water test. Tested the rain. 13,100 micrograms per liter of aluminum in the rain in 2013. Normally, it should be 0. So 13,100 is pretty damn much, folks. It used to be 0, then it was 100s in the 2000s. And then since 2010, it's into the 1,000s and the latest 13,100. In the snow on Mount Shasta, pristine Mount Shasta, 8,000 foot level, 61,000 micrograms per liter, 4 times the amount that is found in the soil up there. Where in the hell is this stuff coming from if it's not coming from the soil? Now, normal, again, it's, these tests are international in scope. We're seeing this all over the world, guys. The aluminum in the soil has doubled in the last 10 years. Aluminum blocks essential nutrients. I am unable in my garden to restore normal pH, and that's because nanoparticles are now in the circulatory systems of both plants and humans. So welcome, fellow guinea pigs. The collapse and decrease of agriculture is something I worry about.
Okay, you can lead into precipitation testing. Francis, what have you done? How's that gone?
The way I get most of my data, in fact, I should say the preponderance, 90% of it, there's a little bit from a natural observation, but 90% of it comes from testing snow water and rainwater. And I get it as soon as possible after it falls. And it varies also a little bit on whether you get it right in the first wave of precipitation that comes over for a front, and there's always more in the first wave than in the end of a front when it's coming through. It's a 5-day storm. It's always a lot more on day 1 than there is on day 5.
A lot more contamination.
Yeah, a lot more contamination. Like in a first wave that came through one time here, we measured the snow, and the snow was 61,000 parts per billion. That's micrograms per liter of aluminum. Now, that makes your hair stand on end when it's that much.
Put that into context for us, that how high above what we should expect is that, we know that we should probably be less than 1 ppb. We're 61,000. Put that into context if you would.
Okay, normal is 0. And you're getting 61,000. Normal would be 0. Or maybe to allow for, say, some people will say it's contaminated. Well, a contamination rate would be like 1 part per billion, which is a heck of a lot different from 61,000 parts per billion. Even the soil is not that high. There's more aluminum in the precipitation coming down than there is in the soil. That's very scary. And then, of course, in the rain, it varies depending on whether it's the start of a front or the end of a front. And that varies, again, from in the tens of thousands to a couple hundreds. And occasionally you'll get something that's less than 100, but it's almost always in the thousands.
Of parts per billion.
Yeah, parts per billion or micrograms per liter.
And for this, again, that we should really ideally expect nothing, not even 1 ppb, and we're talking about hundreds or thousands of parts per billion. Would you not, we would have to consider that highly toxic snow and rain as far as human consumption.
The federal government has a toxic limit of 50 parts per billion or micrograms per liter of aluminum. And we're talking, 50 is the limit for federal. And we're talking local people that are drinking rainwater that's doing thousands. But when it starts going into the thousands, like we're getting in rain and snow water now, and I'm not talking just Mount Shasta, I'm talking all over the United States. You're getting in the thousands.
Of parts per billion.
Of parts per billion, micrograms per liter.
Reminding people that.
It's just astounding.
materials that are going into the environment right now, aluminum oxide nanoparticles and barium nanoparticles, these just happen to be the same materials that they use in nanothermate explosives.
About 5 or so months ago that I have severely elevated barium in my blood. Subsequently, other people tested and found the same. Others found very high aluminum.
Fly me to the moon, let me play among the stars, and let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars. In other words, hold my hand. In other words, baby, kiss me. Fill my heart with song and let me sing forevermore. You are all I long for, all I worship and adore. In other words, please be true. In other words, I love you.
You want some figures? Okay, latest water test. Tested the rain. 13,100 micrograms per liter of aluminum in the rain in 2013. Normally, it should be 0.
Sipping on straight chlorine, let the vibe slide over me. This beat is a chemical, beat is a chemical. When I leave, don't save my seat. I'll be back when it's all complete. The moment is medical.
Aluminum being found because these sprays have aluminum, strontium, barium, manganese. And there's a lot of argument that aluminum is very common to be found, but aluminum is only common in a bonded form. It's not common in a free form, and we're finding high rates of free aluminum.
Snow on Mount Shasta, pristine Mount Shasta, 61,000 micrograms per liter, 4 times the amount that is found in the soil up there. Where in the hell is this stuff coming from if it's not coming from the soil?
Chemtrails. And chemtrails, by the way, barium salts are in chemtrails. They are 10,000 times more toxic to your nervous system than lead.
Is who has the kind of power to allow jet fuel to be infused with aluminum, barium, and other toxic elements and authorized to refuel airplanes with this toxic substance and spray them systematically all over the world.
Compounds that are being used are environmentally dangerous. We need to be monitoring them. We need to be testing them.
So light.
personally tested water and aluminum, and I found aluminum had 47 times the normal expected amounts. Strontium had 10 to 20 times the amounts. Barium was 20 times.
Who's gonna